I'll start with the council prayer. Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Warrandyte people as the traditional owners of the land and waterways that is now known as Manningham. Council pays respect to elders both past, present and emerging, and values their ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as traditional owners of lands and waterways across country, and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council would also like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I'd like to welcome all members of our public who might be joining us online to observe our proceedings. Obviously, because of COVID, we can't meet together and this is being held virtually. As with all council meetings, we are taking questions from the public and encourage you to submit your questions in accordance with our normal practices. Our CEO will read out any questions received and a response will be provided where we have the information to hand. If we're unable to provide a meaningful response, we will take your question on notice and provide a response in writing. We will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing through the normal channels. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with our governance rules. I'll introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda, calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on any item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. Item 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. I will now confirm councillors' attendance. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Anna Chan.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Deirdre Diamonte.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Goff.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle Climate.
Present.
Councillor Ali Lang.
Present.
And Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
Present.
Councillor Laura Main.
Present.
And Councillor Stephen Main.
Present.
Thank you, councillors. There are no apologies, councillors, so please confirm by a show of hands that you can see and hear everyone. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, councillors. Item 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. No prior notification of conflict of interest have been received. Councillors, would anyone like to give a notice of a conflict of interest? There being no notice of interest, we will move on to item 4, confirmation of minutes. Do we have a mover? Councillor Lightbody.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of August 2021 and the council meeting held on the 14th of September 2021 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion.
Councillor Lang. Assuming there's no request for a change to the minutes, so I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, presentations. 5.1, acknowledgement of Paralympic gold medalist Lee Na Lai and Qian Yang. So on behalf of council, I'd just like to acknowledge Templestowe housemates Lee Na Lai and Qian Yang, who each took home gold medals in their individual table tennis events at the Tokyo Paralympics, as well as joint silver medals in this team event. Australia's Paralympic table tennis team hadn't won a gold medal in 37 years before. Lenar and Kwan managed to achieve this within hours of each other. They then went on to take home silver in the team competition. Lenar and Kwan moved to Australia after the 2016 Rio Paralympics and have been playing competitively in Australia ever since, representing Victoria at Nationals and now Australia at the Tokyo Paralympics. So congratulations to both of you, Lenar and Kwan, on a remarkable achievement. Item 5.2, acknowledgement of Norm Smith medalist, Christian Petraka. Well, it's certainly an honour to acknowledge Christian Petraka of the Melbourne Football Club tonight. Christian grew up and played his junior football with the Park Orchards Football Club, Warrandyte Football Club, and Beverly Hills Football Club. He also attended Whitefriars College, where he graduated in 2013. Christian starred in the club's 2021 AFL Grand Final victory with a 39 possession game, helping secure the club's first premiership in 57 years. He equalled Simon Black's record of most possessions in a grand final and won the prestigious Norm Smith Medal for his best on-ground performance. So on behalf of Council, especially Kim, congratulations, Christian, on this fantastic achievement. So, item 6, petitions. We have 6.1. There's a petition which is entitled "No to Expansion of Williamson's Road." Do I have a mover? Councillor Kleinert.
The petition with 19 signatories from residents and ratepayers of Templestowe and surrounds opposing the expansion of Williamson's Road in order to protect the existing streetscape, road size and environment along Williamson's Road, Foot Street, Anderson Street and Porter Street in Templestowe be received and referred through to the relevant officer for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Kleinert. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. I assume you don't want to speak to that, Councillor Kleinert? Thank you. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously again. Thank you, councillors. Item 6.2, titled "Stop the Use of 90 to 92 Pound Road, Warrandyte as a Car Park." Do I have a mover?
I move the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
I
you.
move that. Do you want me to read the motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the petition for 143 signatories from the residents requesting urgent action to stop the use of 90 to 92 Pound Road, Warrandyte from being used as a public car park by A, considering the submission on the issue sent to the council CEO and DELP on the 18th of August 2021, B, by removing the crossover, and C, taking any other necessary steps to prevent access to the site for parking be received and referred through the relevant officer for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Diamante. Sorry, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Diamante. I just had this feeling you might do that. I will put that motion. Those in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to speak to that motion. If do I have the opportunity to do that?
I'll allow you. I'll allow you to speak to it briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This petition with 143 signatories is broken down into two parts. Those living very close and adversely affected daily by 90 and 92 Pound Road being used as an unofficial car park, and 2 by those who are living nearby and who are locally visit and are also adversely affected, especially on high use days. This petition concisely summarises the legal submission from 13 legal submitters with 15 witness statements in order to 3 things. 1, to bring this major risk issue for Manningham to the attention of the full council. 2, to facilitate the urgent interim actions that are within council's current authority and capacity to redress serious safety and amenity loss. And 3, to demonstrate the large numbers of residents and visitors adversely affected and concerned. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. We will move on to item 7, which is public question time. We have received quite a number of questions tonight, so please be patient. At this time, anyone submitting questions to council will have their questions read out by our CEO. And our first question tonight is from Anthony Dalton.
Thanks, Mr. Dalton. First question is, apart from servicing council rubbish bins, what is the council's overall responsibility in ensuring that rubbish left around shopping strip centres is regularly removed, and what is being done to encourage people to dispose of rubbish responsibly? Cigarette butts are a monumental problem.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton, for your question. I'll ask our Director, Ms. Rochelle Quadrucci, Director of City Services, to respond. You seem to be having some technical difficulties. Welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony Dalton, for your question. In answering question 1, council clears the rubbish bins around shopping centres every weekday over summer, with further service provision provided over the busy holiday periods and summer months. We also provide a service to collect litter from public areas across Manningham, including activity and retail centres, and we have a contract service to empty the cigarette bins on a regular basis and promote the use of these bins within our activity and retail centres. We do strongly encourage measures in response to question 2 for the collection of debris before it enters our open water courses. And we have gross pollutant traps for the collection of rubbish to prevent litter from entering our waterways. Melbourne Water is also the water manager for Ruffy Lake Park, and they have a proactive maintenance program. Council also sweeps all local streets in the catchment area on an 8-week cycle, with an increased frequency in autumn to minimise the amount of debris entering the underground drainage network from our city streets. We also continue to look at ways to improve what we do, and we work closely with Melbourne Water and other partners to introduce preventative measures to continually improve the quality of our waterways within Manningham.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Thank you, Rochelle. Yes.
Sorry, Mayor, just by way of clarity there, that was also a response to Mr. Dalton's second question, which is around Ruffy Lake Park and some concerns about rubbish being washed down drainways and what council were doing in that space.
Thanks very much for the clarification. So our next question is from Brad Holland.
And the question is, what was the cost of constructing the roundabout at the intersection of Arundel and Nees Road Park Orchards as a part of the overall Nees Road upgrade works? It seems to serve no useful traffic management function, is an inconvenience to trucks, buses and emergency vehicles, and would have been more effective on the Park and Nees Road intersection.
Thank you. I'll ask Ms. Rochelle Quadrucci, Director of City Services, to respond as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Brad Holland, thank you for your question. And in answering your question, the roundabout at Nees and Arundel Road intersection was constructed as part of the upgrade of the 700-metre length of Nees Road, which is expected to cost around $1.8 million. The roundabout has been constructed to cater for trucks and buses. The roundabout at Arundel Road serves to reduce traffic speeds along Nees Road and provides improved safety at the intersection. If a roundabout was to be installed at Nees and the Parks Roads intersection, it would need to be a much larger roundabout, as it would need to cater for the right turning movement of larger trucks and buses. The cost to install a roundabout at Nees and Parks Roads intersection would be at a much higher cost than that at Arundel Road, given the higher construction, service relocation and potential land acquisition costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Our next questions are from Malcolm Smith.
I'll just read out the statement that Mr. Smith has provided first for some context and then the questions, Mayor. So DELP is considering conducting a legally required lengthy process involving traditional owners and other stakeholders on future use of heritage Crown land 90 to 92 Pound Road near the Pound Road Bend Reserve entrance, where council created a busy car park without consultation or planning. While awaiting DELP's final decision, my questions regard council's own authority, duty and capacity to act, protecting residents, visitors' daily amenities, safety and life, which are now undermined, especially on high visitation days and even more so on high risk days around this site. Question 1, as requested by local residents and organisations since September 2020, and again in a legal submission 18th August 2021, why hasn't council acted with its independent authority to prevent daily commercial and public car parking at this site by A, repairing deepening gutters around the site, B, removing a crossover it installed over a gutter, thus creating easy commercial and public vehicle access, resulting in busy and dangerous roads, unofficial car park in this residential area on Crown land without consultation or planning process, arranging erection of no entry and no parking signs at key points, and residents only parking signs informing public of change conditions and preventing spillover parking, street and driveway blockage. D, negotiating a parking available sign at the entrance to the reserve picnic area car park with Parks Vic, and E, any other means required.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'll ask Ms. Rochelle Quattricci again, Director of City Services, to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Malcolm Smith, for your question, and I will answer this in parts to help explain a response to each one of the items you've requested. In response to item A, in providing some background at request of residents within the area and in conversation with DELP, who's the land manager of the parcel subject land, a crossover was installed to provide safe access to prevent vehicles getting stuck within the open drainage areas, and this also allowed for parking on the reserve area that was seen appropriate at the time. Council officers are reviewing these options, in particular for the overflow of car parking and improvement works to the open drain, which you have requested. In response to item B, council officers have discussed previously and are to meet with DELP to discuss issues with the parking on the site and the option to remove the existing crossover. We've DELP to consider these options as they are the land owner and manager of that site, for the removal of the crossover and revegetation of the land as an option, or alternatively, if they select to keep the crossover and still utilise that area for car parking. DELP has advised officers that they will provide a response to us on these items, and we are to meet with them this week as well to receive a response from them. In response to items C, D and E, council officers have also recently met with emergency service personnel in preparation for the up and coming bushfire season. Council officers leading on from these conversations with emergency personnel and also with DELP are considering options for signage to control parking within the area, overflow parking provision within the broader area, and we are continuing conversations with emergency personnel and DELP, as well as other stakeholders, including Parks Victoria, to include other options. I think those items I have spoken to has also helped to answer question 2, items A, B, C that you've mentioned, and D. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. So we'll now move on to Ulanid, questions from Ulanid and Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask these questions together. They're short questions. The first question is the road closure the safest and cheapest option for road users and residents? And this is in relation to Arundel Road. It's been considered tonight by council. And is Arundel Road engineered to carry cut-through traffic to the many number of various facilities at either end?
I'll ask Ms. Rochelle Quattricci to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Euclid and Daniel Bicolata, for your questions. In answering question 1, a road closure is the most cost-effective solution to manage conflict between pedestrians, cyclists and vehicular traffic on Arundel Road and will result in a safer road environment for all users. Question 2, extensive traffic management devices have been installed along the western section of Arundel Road to discourage through traffic.
Thank you. Our next questions are from Helen and Stephen Scott.
Question 1 is, why was the submission cut-off period extended to suit one resident, as it appears they were given preferential treatment due to the extension not being publicly advertised or offered to the other residents of the street? And I'll ask the second question as well. When making your decision, what is more important, the safety of all the residents, especially the most vulnerable who live and use this road, or management of traffic through the area?
Thank you. Rochelle, are you prepared to answer those? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Helen and Stephen Scott, for your questions. In answering question 1, the submission date was actually extended for 2 weeks due to COVID restrictions that provided an opportunity for residents to meet and discuss the matter at hand, and the extension was advertised on the council website. In answering question 2, both aspects have been considered in the assessment of the matter, and when making a decision, council needs to balance the safety and amenity outcomes for Arundel Road residents and the inconvenience to the greater community that any closure may result in.
Thank you, Rochelle. Our next question is from Michael Gale.
Since the publication of the 28th September council meeting agenda and the Arundel Road West Road closure report last week, we are aware that there has been a number of discussions, including altering of officer recommendation outlined in the council report between individual councillors and certain Arundel Road residents whose views may not represent the broader Arundel Road or Park Orchards community. When considering the report at the meeting, can the Manningham councillors assure residents that they will not make decisions on the fly that go against the council officer recommendation or are not in line with the community feedback already received?
Thank you. I'll respond to that, Michael. Thank you for your question. I'll start by actually addressing an issue that you raised, where you claim that there's been altering of the officer's recommendation outlined in the council report between individual councillors and certain Arundel Road residents. So it's totally appropriate that councillors discuss matters that are coming up with residents. firstly. And secondly, there has been no altering of the officer recommendation outlined in the council report. That is the officer's recommendation. So I'm not sure where that information came from. But now to your question. I can absolutely assure you that Manningham councillors do not make decisions on the fly, and that they can, in terms of your implication that they go against the council officer recommendation, that is why we're here. We can make a decision to go with the officer's recommendation or not. We can make alternate motions that we can vote on, and that is the job of councillors, as was outlined at the start of this meeting. And in terms of being in line with the community feedback already received, it's our job as councillors actually to maintain an open mind until the point of decision. So I'm still taking correspondence and phone calls from various people on various matters to do with tonight. Well, actually, I can't now because up to about an hour ago, I was happy to discuss those matters, as I'm sure all our councillors are if they're available. And it's totally appropriate. When it comes to decision making, we need to weigh up all the information, and we have a responsibility to seek the information that we need to make an informed decision. And it is the organisation's role to also provide us with information as we seek it. And I can assure you that that process is very effective in terms of how we come to a decision. And I invite you to, if you're not satisfied with that answer, please contact me. My phone number is on the website. I'm happy to discuss further. Now we'll move on to our next question from Christopher Hegarty.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll put these two questions together as well. Question one is, the claim has been made repeatedly that Arundel Road West is unsafe, as there is no record of ARW being dangerous in the DOT Open Data Hub crash stats. What evidence is being used to support the contention that the road is dangerous? The child bicycle incident was clearly due to overgrown vegetation on the nature strip at the intersection with Park Road rather than the road itself. And the second question is, in April, the council put forward a submission to construct a footpath along ARW as a solution to the perceived road safety issue. Why was that simple and effective proposal rejected without broader community consultation in place of a road closure, as the council itself says in section 11.2, attachment 2 of the agenda for today, that lack of separation of pedestrians and vehicles is undesirable?
I will ask Ms. Rochelle Quattrocchi again to please respond.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Christopher Haggerty, for your question. In your answer in providing an answer to question one, whilst there have not been any stats recorded on Arundel Road in the Department of Transport crash statistics, council council officers have assessed and have found that it is undesirable for pedestrians and cyclists to be mixing with vehicular traffic along the narrow section of road. In answering question two, the suggestion of a footpath was actually discussed with residents at an on-site meeting involving a substantial number of local residents. However, this was not supported at the time by those present.
Thank you, Rochelle. Our next questions come from David and Sharon O'Connor.
And again, I'll put the two questions together. If the council should decide not to close Arundel Road West, what steps will council take to stop GPS, Waze and other apps from sending couriers, taxis and all other drivers seeking the shortest, fastest route from directing traffic down Arundel Road West? And secondly, what capital works projects will be deprioritised in order to fast track a footpath in Arundel Road West?
Thank you, CEO. I'll ask Ms. Rochelle Petraka again to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, David and Sharon O'Connor, for your question. In answering question 1, Council has limited ability to control navigation applications that do direct drivers to use chosen routes. And one in particular may be Arundel Road. Arundel Road is a public road and it may be perceived by some as a faster route since it connects to both Nease and Park roads and is used as a thoroughfare on occasion. Question 2, in the answer to that, the funds for the proposed footpath along Arundel Road West will be allocated from unallocated funds from Council's footpath program included within the Capital Works program.
Thank you, Rochelle. And our next question is from Ruth and Bob Hodges.
And again, it's a couple of questions. Question 1 is, regardless of tonight's outcome, will Council commit to recommending a reduced speed limit of 20 kilometres an hour on Arundel Road West to the responsible body, and when would this happen? And the second question, in Council's deliberations on a proposed footpath, how would a path and a threshold on one side of the street prevent dangerous speeding, driving, which is the behaviour which needs addressing on this narrow residential road?
Thank you. I'll ask our Director for City Services to respond again.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ruth and Bob Hodges, for your question. In answering question 1, Council has been in discussion with Department of Transport regarding the reduction in speed limits along Arundel Road. And we will formally apply to DOT to lower the speed limit in Arundel Road West should the proposed road closure not proceed. However, any speed limit lower than 40 kilometres an hour is very unlikely to be approved by DOT because it is not consistent with their guidelines, and that is the feedback we have received from the department. In answering question 2, a footpath will allow pedestrians to walk along Arundel Road without needing to mix with vehicular traffic along the street.
Thank you, Rochelle. And our next question is from Cale Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. If Arundel Road West had been considered worthy of 140k to be spent on a potential road closure or footpaths, why has the eastern end been ignored? When was the last time a council member took a walk down the eastern end of Arundel Road to look at the safety of pedestrians there? When will open drains be addressed as they pose a significant pedestrian and health issue?
Yes, well, I can answer that. I've been down there a number of times, and I know another of other councillors have been down there. But I'll ask Ms. Rochelle Petraka to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Gail Taylor, for your question. Any safety concerns of Arundel Road east of Nease Road will need to be considered separately to this process. Council is currently preparing designs for several drainage projects within the area to the south of Arundel Road as part of the Capital Works program. The section of Arundel Road to the east of Nease Road is not a link between two schools and the shopping strip and is therefore considered as a lower priority for footpath works.
Thank you, Michelle. And that is all our questions for tonight. Thank you to the questionnaires and thank you, Rochelle, for taking up most of our time. We move on to item 8, admission of urgent business. And we don't have any items of urgent business, so we'll move on to item 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning permit applications, so we move on to 10, city planning and community. 10.1, Macedon Square Streetscape upgrade, revised concept plan. Do I have a mover? Promotion.
I moved that the recommendation be adopted, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. And do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Councillor Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So what we have tonight, councillors, is a revised concept plan for the revitalisation and renewal of the Macedon Square village. There's been some important changes. I think most notably for the traders, the fact that there will be no net loss of parking. The earlier iteration of this concept plan was going to see a loss of 6 spaces, but with some clever shuffling, we've been able to retain the existing 132 spaces, whilst achieving many of the other benefits, such as a new open space in an area that's very short of open space in front of the Hello World shop, wider footpaths, so there's greater amenity for outdoor dining and outdoor trading, along with more loading bays, including a dedicated mail zone. Better traffic flow, so you can't do a cut off around the centre of Macedon Road. You'll have to be distributed further throughout the centre. And there will also be a new roundabout at Rosa Street, so that you'll be able to circle back into the centre if looking for a park. And we're also looking to revitalise the laneway at the rear of the shops on the western side of the centre. The tree situation is quite interesting. At one level, it's disappointing that 40 of the 74 trees are going to need to be removed, and this is partly because they're in relatively poor condition, and also from a safety aspect because they have been lifting the paving and do contribute significantly to the safety concerns at the centre. But 55 new trees will be planted as part of the overall renewal project. The overall budget, which we haven't formally budgeted for yet, but I think the intention fully is to do so, will be for 3.5 million, which is more than the original 1.5 million, which was budgeted last year, but which, after further consultation, the project has been delayed. There'll be some prep work and some utilities work in the current year, but the substantial works will be spread over 2 financial years and will primarily start in February 2023, giving the traders a clear run through Christmas 2022. Given the interruptions we've had with COVID the last 2 years, the feeling was we don't want to suddenly embark on a big disruptive project after 2 years of COVID disruptions around Christmas. It's been an incredibly thorough consultation process involving, I think, meetings with 12 traders at once, and then another 19 of the 33 business owners in the centre in one-on-one meetings in June. So I'd like to thank all the officers, from Frank and James and Angela and Rochelle and everyone else who've done a power of work. It's a very transparent process. The full traffic report is in the report tonight, and everyone can see the recommendations in there. I really think we've got the balance right here. Macedon Road is one of our main streets in Manningham, where you've got shops on the street, and it's vibrant. It hasn't been significantly upgraded since the late 1990s, so it's overdue. And I really think that this proposal has been well thought out, adds to public space, which is good, will make for better and safer pedestrian access, outdoor dining, and will be a really attractive place for people to come, visit, shop and spend time in the community. So I have very happily, strongly moved this recommendation tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Deirdre Dimonte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Mayne articulated the plan really, really well. I just wanted to emphasise some of the points because I think it's really important. There was considerable input from the community, from visitors to the centre and from the traders. And I'd like to congratulate the officers. They've worked really hard in refining the plan, taking in the traders' input. So the roundabout that Councillor Mayne mentioned on Rosa Street was a direct suggestion from one of the traders at one of our sessions, as is the no-net car park loss and the loading bays. And I also like to point out that it is going to get a facelift, which is needed. But I think the character of the centre is absolutely going to be maintained. It will continue to be a place that's easy to access by the elderly to get their fruit and vegetables, or to visit the bakery or the butcher. And it will also include the new open space and revitalise that end of the the shopping strip. So I think the officers should be congratulated on a really good design, and I want to thank the visitors and the traders for their input as well.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Are there any speakers against this motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? No, there being no other speakers, I will put that motion to the floor. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we move on to 10.2, our review of advisory committees. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover?
I'd like to move an alternate motion, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Go ahead.
So I'd like to move that the officer's recommendation be adopted with the following amendments. So removal of point B4, livable places and spaces advisory committee new, and the addition of point D, which reads, note the proposal to form a livable places and spaces advisory committee subject to consultation with the members of existing relevant committees on this proposed new committee, on its subject matter, structure and draft forward agenda, and subject to any new committee continuing to explicitly recognise and actively include strategic heritage considerations, both historic and contemporary, as a standing item at every meeting and as part of other committee discussion points.
Thank you. That was a long movement of a motion. Well done. Do I have a seconder for that alternate motion?
The motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Diamante, would you like, sorry, that was Councillor Lang for the record. Councillor Diamante, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I recognise the value of creating a livable places and spaces advisory committee, and I recognise the value of having heritage as an integral discussion point when considering planning and design and livable spaces. I think that's a really good thing for both traditional heritage and contemporary heritage to be considered as part of these projects such as North East Link or Doncaster Hill or building out our activity centres. I think that's a really good thing. And so I support this committee in that respect. However, heritage is such an integral part of Manningham and who we are. And even when we put out the council plan for comment, we got feedback that we should be talking about our heritage more in that council plan and our commitment to supporting our heritage. And I do have a concern that this committee is so big that heritage could be lost. So I value the inputs of the members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. I value their inputs into how we can just ensure that strategic heritage matters are not lost and in fact embraced as part of this new committee. So this is the reasons why I've put this alternate motion together.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Diamante did a great job of explaining it and the purpose of it. I'm just really glad that there is a strategic policy in looking at heritage considerations when we are planning, designing, interacting, improving with our livable places and spaces. And I think that's really important. And so I really support this addition to our officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Are there any speakers against this motion? This being the alternate motion. No. Any other speakers for the motion? No. I'll put that motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 10.3, establishment of the Manningham Youth Advisory Committee. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Laura Main, thank you. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is the first Youth Advisory Committee in Manningham. And it is essential that our young residents feel participation of the committee rewarding and the structured meetings are engaging, because we all know that youth are our future and our right now. After months of consultation with young people and benchmarking with other councils, I'm delighted to see the proposed terms of reference for Youth Advisory Committee is tabled for council to consider tonight. The purpose of the Youth Advisory Committee is to provide the opportunity for young people aged 16 and 25 years to reflect their thoughts and advice in key strategic documents and directions. And number two is to discuss issues that affect young people and advise council. The advice may form part of council's advocacy, programs, services, and actions. Also to provide opportunities for young people to build leadership skills, make meaningful contributions, and understand the role of council. The committee membership will be a term of 12 months with an option of further 12 months. It will include 3 councillors, at least 8 young people through application process, and 2 direct nomination of young people from Manningham Youth Services. The committee will have co-chairs, 1 councillor, and 1 young person. This is to maximize young people's civic participation opportunity. The young co-chair will conduct the meeting, and the rotation will be a decision for the committee. It is expected that the recruitment process will commence in the final quarter of 2021. The committee meeting will be at the start of the 2022 academic year. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my fellow councillors' support for the establishment of a Youth Advisory Committee, and also the hard work from our officers. Without their hard work, we won't have the terms of reference tonight. And so I seek my fellow councillors' continued support for the establishment of Youth Advisory Committee and also the proposed terms of reference tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chen. Councillor Laura May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm so glad to see the establishment of our Youth Advisory Committee. This has been something that I've been really looking forward to, and I can't wait to see what initiatives they come up with and the different perspectives they have to offer. I guess being in this age range, I know so many capable and really insightful young people in Manningham who I know just have so much to offer to council. So it makes me really excited. This committee will give not only youth perspective on issues raised at council, but also a direct insight into youth related matters, as well as offering young people the experience of being part of a committee and actually having a say in a big organisation such as a local council, something which is more difficult to come across at a young age. This committee will coordinate with each Youth Advisory Committee, which has reviewed its terms of reference to work better with the new council structure. Council actually met with this committee, each committee earlier in the year, and they were a really impressive and passionate group, which is really encouraging when we're forming our own committee at council. And I just really encourage young people to put their hand up if they're listening in on this, or if someone listening knows a young person who might like to get involved, just because we'd really love to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Are there any speakers against this motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Sorry, just quickly, because Councillor Chen and Councillor Laura Main have done a fantastic job in summarising what the Youth Advisory Committee is and the importance of our youth. It's just so nice not just nice, it's so important that our Manningham Council have acknowledged that our youth have a voice and they are a next generation. So aspects that they can be considering are not just for now, but they are for future generations, and that impacts these advisory committee members. Therefore, they have a stakeholdership in it, and their voice is really important. So I'm just really pleased that Manningham has gone down this path to acknowledge our youth and the wealth of knowledge they have, but also the benefit of the prospects for the future as well.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Are there any other speakers? No, I will put that motion to the floor. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Goff, oh no, that's right. We move on to 10.4, the Transport Action Plan. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Main. Sorry, Councillor Laura Main. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Transport Action Plan identifies key transport-based objectives, actions, and advocacy for council to enhance transport in and to the municipality. Manningham is the only municipality in metropolitan Melbourne to rely solely on buses for its public transport services. Therefore, it is important that the existing bus network operates effectively and efficiently to provide a reliable alternative to the motor vehicle for our residents. The plan assures our community that council will continue advocacy to pursue the 20 recommendations contained in the Manningham Bus Network Review 2017, and is seeking to work collaboratively with the Department of Transport on Manningham bus study for our local and broader community. The plan identifies the bus rapid transit proposal and Suburban Railroad project as council's key public transport priorities, including supporting the North-East Links Doncaster Bus Way proposal. We know that bus rapid transit is a key objective of the bus network review recommendations and was previously endorsed by council in 2017. Doncaster Bus Way along the Eastern Freeway, all the way from Doncaster Park and Ride towards the city, is a key component in North-East Links project and is Melbourne's first dedicated busway. The council's position is always that the busway should be along the Doncaster and Mitcham Road corridors to Mitcham Station, and council will continue our ongoing advocacy for bus rapid transit service between Doncaster and CBD. In terms of Suburban Railroad, the biggest infrastructure investment in Victoria history includes 3 sections of the loop. The first stage is Suburban Railroad East from Chatterton to Box Hill. But Doncaster Hill Station will be included in Suburban Railroad North, which is the second section. Construction of the Suburban Railroad East will start in 2022, and the line will be operating by 2035. When the first stage is being delivered, early planning and development of Suburban Railroad North continues. It is expected that the 90-kilometer rail construction will be complete by 2053. Council will continue advocating for an express bus route that mirrors the Suburban Railroad alignment. We would like to see the express bus route to delivered in the short term to link the major university campuses from Monash University, Deakin University to La Trobe University. We also want to secure a Doncaster Hill Station footprint and associated entrances as soon as possible. The plan also details actions on sustainable transport technologies, such as on-demand bus services, car share schemes, and electronic vehicles to promote active transport, and to promote active transport such as walking and cycling, to support the concept of achieving a city's 20-minute neighborhood throughout the new municipality. 300,000 in council's operational budget will be allocated for planning, design, advocacy to support key actions of the plan. Implementation of the action plan on North East Link, bus rapid transit, and Suburban Railroad. The plan will be reviewed every 4 years and will be monitored and respond to any changes in government policy and political influence or campaigns. As a final note, Mr. Mayor, Suburban Railroad Bill 2021 passed the Assembly on 16th of September. It will have significant impact to Manningham as a whole. So as a council, we need to understand the impact of the bill and try our very best to advocate for the best possible outcome for our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Anna. Sorry, Councillor Chen. Now, Councillor Laura Main, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just touching on a few things I was happy to see in the report. So happy to see the considerations of new bus routes, such as down Doncaster Road, growing up in Manningham. That missing link was such an inconvenience, as well as the express bus service between universities. I think it's important to have the access to these universities, as it can be a really key consideration when someone is considering where they want to pursue their education. Definitely was for me. And it's important to note that not every young person has their license, let alone access to a car every day. As our residents are very aware, Manningham does rely on its buses, and though we'd love a train, I'd love a train. I guess at the very least, we're making the most of what we got at the moment. Also very glad to see the exploration of the 2 new walking bridges, letting Bullying residents have better access to the Yarra River as they rightly deserve, and as well as encouraging recreational activity. And overall, I just think it's really important that we look at the most sustainable and accessible transport in terms of the livability of our municipality, which I think this report is aiming to achieve. And I'd just like to thank the officers for their work putting it together. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? No, I will put that motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And we move on to 10.5, the naming of a park in Warrandyte, Wonguim wilam. Do I have a mover?
I move the recommendation be adopted, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Wonguim wilam.
Very good. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lightbody. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. Even though we are going down the path of officially naming the park as Wonguim wilam, as a Woiwurrung name, I just want to acknowledge that you know, it's been known for some time as Lions Park, because our Warrandyte Lions Club have had a considerable history and being custodians of the park for a substantial period of time. And I just want to honour them in them taking this opportunity as well to be leaders in reconciliation, and with the meetings that we've had with them to, you know, approve going down this path of officially naming the park and doing so as Wonguim wilam. So just wanted to make that acknowledgement. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lightbody, would you like to speak to the motion? Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? I will take the opportunity then to speak to this motion, and I just would like to thank the Warrandyte Council for engaging in this process with Manningham, and it is a critical. This is a great step, I think, in the right direction for us as Manningham as we look towards reconciliation. I appreciate having been involved in the number of meetings about this issue and discussing with, as Councillor Lang mentioned, the great work that the Lions Club have done over many years. And I think I'd like to congratulate the Lions Club on their leadership in terms of taking this step towards reconciliation. And I really, it's a historic moment, I think, for Manningham to be doing this. And I look forward to going through this process multiple times, hopefully, but more importantly, to maintain this great relationship that we have with the Warrandyte Council, or sorry, the Warrandyte Wairarong Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation. So I would like to also just acknowledge the great work of our officers in bringing this to this point. It has been a long road, and this is it's a great moment, I think. So thank you particularly to the officers and for everyone involved. And I'd also like to thank our director Angelo Carambas for your leadership in establishing that relationship with the Warrandyte and making sure that they were on for the journey. So with that, and there being no other speakers, I will put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And we move on to item 11, City Services. 11.1, Arundel Road, West Section for Park Orchards, proposed road closure. Do I have a motion and a mover for that motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council defer the consideration of this item until the 23rd of November 2021 council meeting to permit further investigation regarding a potential partial road closure and other safety measures on Arundel Road West Park Orchards.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Climate. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Councillors and community, we are proposing to defer the Arundel Road West proposed road closure motion because we have heard our community concerns and questions. We know the Arundel Road West issue has caused division within our Park Orchards community, and that is why we want to investigate other measures for our community's benefit. Therefore, the core intent of safety mitigation for our Park Orchards community we permit our officers to investigate potential partial road closure for Arundel Road West with other safety measures. It has come to light through all of the consultations that Arundel Road West is a mixed use, narrow, short carriageway with chicanes and speed bumps, signalled local traffic only. And it is, as the crow flies, a direct shorter access to local schools, township, recreation, reserve at Domini, and 1,000 acres for children, community, parents, teenagers, either on foot, riding bikes, on scooters, as well as motorists. It is this mixed use that is causing the safety issues for our community. To provide safety for this mixed use, the council has previously suggested removing the vehicular component, enabling the access road to be safe for all other uses. Council's March 2021 traffic survey results indicated that 2/3 of the traffic along Arundel Road West is through traffic, with 200 plus movements per day instead of the estimated 70 vehicular movements calculated for this road. Also, the signposted local road is used by GPS faculties for delivery routes for major supermarkets or for delivery of food like Menulog or Uber Eats, etc. These quick as you can services are not familiar with the nature of the environment or that it is signposted local traffic only. This motion to investigate partial road closure removes this potential vehicular traffic directed by GPS faculties to the roads that they are meant and safe to be on. During community consultation, there were 3 petitions opposing the road closure and 1 supporting the road closure. A significant portion of the objections were from households on Arundel Road East, with their main concerns relating to the removal of road access in case of an emergency, and the fear that the closed traffic will be displaced to Euston and Dowry Avenue and be adverse to additional demands on Nees and Park roads. Yes, the intersection of Nees and Park Road has been recently widened to improve the capacity of this intersection, creating separate left and right lanes at the approach of Park Road. For me, this decision to defer was not made lightly. There have been a lot of discussions with community, officers and councillors. We are a strong governing body that ensures that we are well informed and measured in our decision-making processes. Consequently, this decision to defer the Arundel Road West proposed closure comes back to the primary objective of the motion, which is safety mitigation. Therefore, we permit further investigation regarding a potential partial road closure and other safety measures on Arundel Road West. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor, sorry, I can't remember if I actually asked for a seconder. Councillor Climate, you seconded, I think.
I did.
Thank you. My apologies. Councillor Climate, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just, Mr. Mayor, just to reaffirm that we don't, as a council, often defer items, but when we do, it's because we're trying to, as a governing body of councillors, to make the right decision. This is a very divided community, and ultimately, whatever decision does come, there'll be someone disappointed. There are many ways to do this, and it's not necessarily an easy just this way and this will be right, because you're going to have lots of affected residents. So we're taking this opportunity to go back, look, get some more information, more investigating, and as a council discuss further. We as councillors, many, including myself, have gone, we've seen the site, we've walked it, we know it very well, and we all are very focused on making the right decision. So to defer, I believe, is in the best interest of our decision making and in the best interest of our community.
Thank you, Councillor Climate. Are there any speakers against this deferral motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? I'm happy to speak for the motion. Councillors, I've been closely involved in trying to understand myself the issues here, and I've spoken to a number of residents, both inside, within Arundel Road and outside Arundel Road. We've heard the submissions, and in those submissions there was some quite innovative proposals put forward, And I do think a deferral is appropriate so that we can properly get information from the officers regarding alternatives rather than just close the road or not close the road, which is basically what we're looking at. So I guess I hope that with this extra time that the community can actually work together. I do note a significant feedback from the community that they do not like being pushed around. They don't like people asking them what they think of things. A lot of people actually consider what they think of this road as to be like a vote how do you vote? And so I would encourage all the community to not question anyone else's motivation, to not judge anyone for their decisions, on how they think about things. We all think about things differently. We as 9 councillors think about things differently. We will get a balanced decision by taking this extra time and by really considering what all the implications are of any decision we make. And given that there's not really a clear path of when we're going to be back to full traffic volumes at the moment, I think it's appropriate that we take this extra 2 months to ensure that we have enough information, that councillors' concerns are addressed appropriately, that we understand all the community's angst, and hopefully there's a bit of healing in the community. I think there is an opportunity for people to just not look at what's going on in their backyard, or not be so concerned about what they think is right, put themselves in other shoes, because that's what we have to do. And that's what we will do when we come to making a decision on this in November, providing this motion passes. So I urge councillors to support a deferral. There being no other speakers, Councillor Lang, you have a question?
No, am I allowed to close the motion, Mr. Mayor?
No, because there's been no speakers against.
That's fine.
Yep, that's fine. So I will put the motion. Those in favour? And that is carried. Well done. Thank you, councillors. And to anyone from Arundel Road who may be watching, you might want to leave now, or you can hang on. We're at 11.3, which is our proposed lease. Sorry, I think I've skipped 11.2. End of 2021 financial year capital works status report. Do I have a mover?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this is just the end of year report on our capital works program, which I think started off with a budget of around close to 50 million, and we've ended up spending, I think, 43.8 million. In future years, we've got a long-term target of 54 million a year in capital works, so we are looking to significantly crank it up. So we do have, I think, 3.9 million in carry forwards, but 251 of the 278 projects that made up the capital works budget were completed in full. And as the report notes, the budget is in a very healthy position. Little personal bugbear of mine is the amount of spending in June. So we actually spent 12.15 million in June, which was 27.7% of the 43.8 million that we spent. So we spent more than a quarter of the budget in the last 30 days of the year. So I'm hoping that we can spread it out a bit more evenly in years going forward. In terms of specific notable budget items, with Petty's Reserve is our biggest project at the moment. We were budgeted to spend 5.75. We've actually spent 6.22, and the total budget has increased by a couple of million to 10.3 million. And we're all looking forward to that opening in the coming weeks. Resealings of road, we've actually spent more than budget there. We were budgeting for 4 million, we spent 4.77 million, whereas work on our council buildings, we were budgeting for 6.4 and in the end ended up spending 4.81 million. In terms of a couple of notable projects that didn't proceed, the MC Squared exterior works has been postponed, and along with the Mullen Bowls project. So there was a little bit of money shuffling around into other budgets there. And an unexpected item that did come into the capital works budget was the $1.3 million purchase of the Templestowe RSL, which was a great acquisition for council. And we also spent 1.8 million of our 2 million budget acquiring land for open space. So that program of cranking up acquisitions is continuing. So I think it's a good outcome for the year. Looking forward to spending a bit more in future years. It's a big complex program, so thanks to all the officers for undertaking this. It's good comprehensive reporting for the community to be able to see such detail on all the different projects and the spending and the budget changes and the like. So I think we should consider voting unanimously in favour of this, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I support all of those comments. Councillor Mayne has talked about the report. In addition to what Councillor Mayne has talked about, I just wanted to raise two things. One is the increased expenditure. I think we've got software and other things for the computers or technology, and it's a capitalised item. And that was at about 190% of the budgeted amount. So we had an opportunity, but this actual budget really does reflect the COVID year that we've had, because a majority of the time we have been in COVID, and I congratulate for the amount of work that we have been able to cover, and the office to be able to get out there and work as hard as possible to achieve those results. And the second point I want to make is the point that was made in 4.3, the key performance indicators. And the comment here is talking about what we use as a KPI, and traditionally it has been the dollar expenditure, and they're talking about here in a comment with regard to the KPI is using a number of projects completed. And I think as we've done it in this report, both of those figures are important, not just the number of projects, because ironically, they both work out at about the same. 27 of 270 something projects is about 10%, and the amount that we have missed, not expended, is there. So I just congratulate that both of those need to be there, but just wanted to draw attention to some major capital expenditure in the computer area or software area, I think it is, that we have to own, and all the rest that's occurred in that particular time frame.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Are there any others? Are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any speakers for? I will put that motion. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you again, councillors. We move on to 11.3. Proposed lease to Vodafone Hutchison Australia Proprietary Limited and Telstra Corporation Limited, Park Donvale Reserve, 36 to 82 Mitcham Road, Donvale. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goff.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Diamante. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just briefly, this is a phone tower that has been leased out since 2013 and 14, and I'm trying to find the report because I'm on the iPad and I'm not getting to it. But anyway, from memory, basically, this particular is coming up for renewal. The lease is being renewed early in 2022. And indeed, a part of that responsibility for that renewal process is for some community engagement with regard to it. And so what we're committing ourselves to do is to continue with the process of the community engagement. And then if there's no major objection, because this is these are facilities that are already really there. The tower is going to be replaced, and the lease is renewed, and all of the information is in regard to that. And then this authorises, unless there's a major hiccup at that particular point, we're saying go on and continue and enter into that lease with the telecommunications. And telecommunications of this sort really are going through a process, but they do have a high priority because of safety within our world these days. Good telecommunications is essential for everybody, because a lot of alerts and everything else is put out. So it's major infrastructure, but this is purely the process of renewing a lease. And I recommend that council continue to go through with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Diamante? Nothing further. So are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And so we move on to item 12, shared services. There are no shared services reports. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, Manningham Quarterly Report, Quarter 4, April to June 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goff.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would like to speak to the motion, but I'd just like to get this particular one open, and my iPad is not going to page 256 for some reason. No. It's not even getting to 252. And this one here, I can't just do from memory because I wanted to look at some things. Just hang on. No, just hang on. I'll be a second. I'll be a second. No worries. Okay. Yeah, okay. No, good on you. Thanks very much. Again, some of the items in here, and really this is the last quarter. So we're talking about the year ending the 20th of the quarter of the year ending the 20th of June. This really talks about not only just those capital works things that we've been going through and we just talked about before, but also about all other areas and the performance of council according to our corporate performance and what we have said we were going to do in the themed areas that we have in council. And there's detailed area of report there. In our councillors report, we've got that, and our set out these days clearly indicates that we have, and I can again congratulate. It's a good, easy read for that set out. Lying behind all of this is essential information of flow charts and everything else, and there's more. But just as a glance, just to report, and this is something that councils must do on a quarterly basis, is get a report and get it up there. But just looking on that, you can really see the influence of the COVID situation on Manningham and how we've been able to cope with that. And you know, we look here, and I just look at the start of the huge percentage of the 22% down on the fees and charges. But to offset that in many ways, there have been a lot of grants and some state government grants with regard to COVID that we've got, and we've had some very good wins as far as capital grants are concerned. So our user fees and charges down, but our operating grants, and some of that is COVID money that's come in, and our capital grants are doing well. And the little comments in there about where the other money for that favourable spot of, I think it was $18 million, but I'm not quite sure, but it's up there. We've got a $20 million target for that other income. Now, the one thing I didn't get a chance to ask beforehand, but I will at the end of this, is that number 11.9 million or 1.9 million favourable? I can understand the 11.9 if we're taking land into consideration. So I'm looking at the spotlight box at 11.9 favourable in other income, mainly due to contribution of assets. Now, that means that we've had a huge asset delivered to us. of about $10 million. Okay, so I'm just wondering whether that figure is 11.9 or 1. But overall, there's that. And looking at the thing, it's interesting to note, Mr. Mayor, that it's been a COVID year, and but the number of planning applications received is lower, and that probably makes sense. And they're significantly lower than the 2018-19 year, where it was an absolute bonus year. So there's been a huge fall off in planning applications, and that's that may be setting a trend to the future of Manningham at the moment. And it'd be interesting in the future to get a report on that. But also then we talk about our council plan in this report, which was a celebration. And really it's part to do with our annual report, but yeah, that we've already gone over these things, but there's a huge list of achievements on that right-hand side that I draw council's attention to. And so we've got a lot of indicators of how we're performing. And in essence, Mr. Mayor, we are doing well, but you can see the impact in a lot of the graphs of the COVID situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goff. Now I'll move on to Councillor Main.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, just briefly, so this is a bit of a milestone because it's the final quarterly report of the 2017 to 2021 four-year council plan. So 16 of these have come up over the last 4 years. So hence there's still discussions in this report about things like the $25 million Mullumbullen Stadium build and other major projects that were delivered over the course of that plan. So when we get the next quarterly report in towards the end of the year, it will be very different because it will have all the metrics looking at the actions and the strategies around the new council plan that we've only adopted in recent weeks. And we've also requested a little transparency push where we're going to get a profit and loss and a summary of our cash investments and balance sheet and lists of developer contributions in these going forward. So the template will very much change in terms of it dealing with these reports going forward. I think the last plan was excellent. The council's in very good shape. We've made a few changes with the new plan and look forward to the community being given very regular detailed data on the different performance metrics on how we're going against this new plan, starting with the next quarterly report that comes to us in 3 months' time.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Main. Any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Michelle Kleinert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I just want to commend the officers through the CEO for great work in essentially what was the last year of a 4-year plan where it was hindered by COVID, as which we know, a total of 278 projects along the way, with only 27 of them being delayed or incomplete over the 4 years. When you look at the completed program, it's a 93.6% completion, which is very good, and it's something to be commended. You know, it's never perfect by any means. No world's perfect, and certainly we were not working in a perfect scenario in the last 12 months. With that, as Councillor Goff said, interesting where we did not receive the fees and charges. It was interesting. It's almost what we were negative in the fees and charges, we were positive in what we gave in grants or received in grants. So this in and out sort of thing it's quite interesting how close the similarity was. And I think it's to be commended across the board. We finished up well, and makes it really exciting to see, as we've just, as Councillor Main said, completed our new council plan, how we will see the next quarter. The reporting mechanism is really easy to see for our residents to be able to pick it up and have a great snapshot about all that we're doing, whether it's our finances, our corporate services, and how those things align to our council plan. So thank you very much once again. I'd like to thank the organisation for a job which I think has been well done.
Thank you, Councillor Kleinert. Any other speakers? Being no other speakers, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And thank you. That is passed. Sorry, I did. Councillor Goff, you actually had a question that you referred to that you might do later. I'm assuming you'll do that offline. You're on mute, so I don't know what you're saying.
You can do it offline, or if someone could just make a comment right at the end of the thing. If they don't, that can be done later on.
You want to clarify the question so officers can take it on notice?
My question is that number correct? Basically, is 11? Should it be 1.9 million or should it be 11.9?
So you're talking about the other income.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is correct. So
that is correct. Thank you. That's all. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have addressed that prior to voting on the motion. Hopefully,
that's
we'll
all right.
change your mind. Okay, so we will move on, and thank you, officers. So we're up to 13.2, instruments of sub-delegation from council to members of staff under the under the Environment Protection Act of 2017. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lang.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. Councillor Lang.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion? I will put that motion. Those in sorry, if anyone want to speak against the motion, I will put that motion. Those in favour. And carried. Thank you. Appointment of authorised. Sorry, item 13.3. Appointment of authorised officer, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Councillor Lang.
That the recommendation be adopted, Mayor.
Thank you. And the seconder? Councillor Kleinert, would you like to speak to it, Councillor Lang?
No, thank you.
Councillor Kleinert? Any speakers against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And 13.4, informal meeting of councillors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Lang? Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Chen?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Lang?
No, thank you.
And if there are any speakers against, I will put that motion in. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Again, thank you, councillors. Item 13.5, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover for a motion or alternate motion? Councillor Kleinert.
Mr. Mayor, I move the alternate motion that the recommendation be adopted with the addition of the following agreements: consent to build over an easement agreement under section 173 of the Planning and Environmental Act of 1987, Council and RCD Gamma, 6 to 8 Feversham Avenue, Park Orchards and Community Services Lease, Council and Warrandyte Community Association Inc., Part Warrandyte Community Centre, 168 to 178 Yarra Street, Warrandyte.
Thank you. Sorry, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Lang. Thank you. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 14, notices of motion. Item 14.1, notice of motion by Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Nomination number 42021. I have a mover.
I'd like to move that the notice of motion be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Laura Main. And over to you, Councillor Lightbody.
Yep. This motion comes, I guess, after a number of events, and the first being was some data that was released that not only have racist incidents increased, whether it be physical or verbal, over the COVID pandemic, but they were most commonly located in local streets, shops, and local shopping centres. And that also 90% of those affected did not come forward to report it out of fear or isolation. And that report that was co-authored by the Australian Asian Alliance also said that Victoria had the second largest increase in racist events after New South Wales. This particular campaign was originally developed by the Inner West Multicultural Network in Sydney to normalise these conversations, but also to have something that could be seen through the installation of these street signs in high traffic areas that would reassure people of other cultures that racism isn't welcome and that they're correct in reporting it and not accepting it. It also looks to empower other community members and encourages them to stand up to it when they see it, rather than standing back or walking past because it's too hard. A few weeks ago, we also had some workshops with the leaders of our multicultural communities. They were talking about how we're going to interact with them in the future, but one of the topics that did come up was racism. And what really struck me were things that reminded me that racism isn't always loud in your face, and that there are places that people often feel uncomfortable about their own cultures. And those can include like our local parks or our local shopping centres, and that going shopping for basic needs can sometimes come with anxiety in people of other cultures. Nobody should feel worried about going to the shops in that respect. And the second thing that hit me was one of the people there actually apologised before and after talking about racism. They said along the lines of, "I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but racism is real and constant." And nobody should be apologising for talking about racism. And I think that in itself is a symptom of the experience of racism and the fear of talking about it. It can sometimes make them feel like it's their fault when it's not. Racism isn't their issue, it's someone else's issue that unfortunately has negative effects on them and people of different cultures. We're really good at a society of saying everyone's welcome, and Melbourne is the most multicultural city. But in fact, sometimes over talking these points are actually minimising the real issues and can make people who experience racism feel like maybe they're the only one, or maybe they're ashamed to call it out or report it. And Manningham especially is really great at being welcoming. In fact, our city was recently accredited alongside Untitled in South Australia as the first cities in the world to achieve the established level of welcoming cities accreditation standard. But even though we're a welcoming city and everything's welcome, racism is still here and occurs frequently in people of other cultures. I'm putting up this motion to not only stand up with those who get discriminated against based on race, but as someone who's also experienced discrimination and derogatory comments as a member of the LGBTIQ community. And I know from my own personal experience that seeing something out in the community is just as important as hearing someone say something in support. So this campaign does more than just saying words, and I want there to be something our communities can see. This campaign highly relevant to people from other cultures, particularly youth, who, according to reports from other councils who put up the signs, have felt profound feelings of hope. And that's kind of what I want people in our community to feel as well. It's in a council relevant language, the street sign, which also looks absolutely fantastic. And these are the reasons why I hope everyone would support this motion. I'd like to quickly finish on an experience from my own life. I currently do work in the leisure and aquatics industries. And at a place I used to work at, a woman once came up to me and asked me if what another woman was wearing was appropriate for the pool. I know, it's like a huge red flag there. Luckily for me, I saw this as a moment to call it out, and conveniently another woman just walked in, and I indicated towards that lady and said, what's the difference between the long sleeve rashi and long swimming bottoms that this woman's wearing, which were pretty much identical to the other woman. And the lady who had come up to me to complain essentially looked at that woman and looked back at me and just walked off. And I think I knew at that point I'd beaten the ultimate boss level swimming Karen. But this really highlights that people think it's okay to question those sorts of things and question what other people are wearing. And in saying that, I'm pretty sure at the time I felt like the woman who was being complained about was completely aware of what this woman was talking to me. And I understand that would have made her feel probably extremely uncomfortable. Maybe if the woman who came up to me to complain saw this sign on her way through the car park, or maybe she wouldn't have said anything at all. Maybe she would have. But maybe if there was one outside, our pools or our local shopping centres, when people see them as they come and go, other people might stand up to racism, and maybe it'll give someone working at any various location to give themselves the courage to stand up as well, instead of just brushing it off, which is kind of the easiest thing to do. But yes, that's a quick experience from my own life. I hope everyone supports this motion, and I hope other councils join the growing national campaign. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Lightbody. Councillor May, would you like to speak to them?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great initiative to ensure our residents feel as though they belong, and that we are trying to decrease discrimination from our community, both condemning this behaviour from those who might partake in it, or just drawing attention to potentially subtle or even unconscious racism, as well as ensuring those facing it do feel supported by us as their local council. As we found in our Strength Through Community forums we had a few weeks ago, where we met with multiple leaders of our multicultural groups across Manningham, although racism isn't as overt and obvious as it used to be, it still exists in Manningham through multiple ways, which, as it negatively affects such a large portion of our community, is an issue that council should address. Racism is a complex issue, and though often overlooked and misunderstood by white Australia, and although this campaign may not fix the problem entirely, it is still at least something that council can contribute. And yes, I find the phrase #racism not welcome as uniting, as it does entice this hope that Councillor Lightbody flagged. So I am very happy with his initiative to explore this, and I'm really looking forward to it being possibly implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that we all have a responsibility to stand against racism. Being a migrant from a Cult background myself, I welcome any effective approach and action in tackling racism and contributing to a more inclusive society. And I wish to thank Councillor Lightbody to include the extra bullet point in his motion to explore other mechanisms and resources strategically and report back to Council on effective approaches and actions in tackling racism and contributing to a more inclusive society. Australian human rights, it reminds me about Australian Human Rights Commission's Racism It Stops With Me campaign. It has been here for many, many years. It is a national campaign to help people and organizations learn about racism and stand against it by acting for positive change. A commission support can be tailored for each organization's specific needs. So what Manningham needs and Manningham's situation probably completely different from other areas. So I do believe that it is one of the many actions that can be considered. Overall, we need the community to work together to overcome any obstacles and to foster a livable environment and an inclusive society. As simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Diamonte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Chen covered well what I was going to say. I support the motion, but I also support the last point of the motion that we encourage ourselves as councillors and officers to look at additional measures to support the Racism Not Welcome campaign. So positive and inclusive measures that look at racism from all the aspects involving schools, businesses, organisations, council, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Diamonte. there any other speakers? Councillor Goff.
Just muted myself. So there. No, I support the motion, especially number 4, part 4. I did have, and I still do have some concerns with hashtag racism not welcome, because I hope that doesn't engender a negative, but I see how you're talking about it as a positive, because the optimum thing is to have harmony and inclusiveness. We need to include everybody. It doesn't matter where you're from and what religion you are and or anything about you. It's having a society that is inclusive. And I suppose I was talking to another councillor today. I suppose it is the old teacher in me that it's better to look at do the positive word. And I'm just talking about the word itself, because the word is the divisive word. But considering in the thing it is, it's worth a try. But I do believe there's some other things around and measures with people in our community that we need to be addressing. And I think that's exactly what Councillor Chen's talking about. And, you know, if we do something like this, that's fine. It just, to me, I would have used a positive message, but I know that this is a program that's from someone else and for someone else, so I think it is worth trying. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Lang.
Thank you. And I want to just congratulate Councillor Lightbody and Councillor Chen on putting together, for Councillor Lightbody to put together the motion, but also to take on the recommendations of Councillor Chen. Councillor Lightbody would know that from a teaching background myself, wording is important, and framing it positively is always going to be my innate preference. But the objective here is the same. The objective here is that we are complementing our municipality, our city, on already being leaders in accepting all our different backgrounds and multicultural backgrounds. And it really came through when we had our strengthening multicultural meetings, that there are many factors that influence racism and people feeling not connected. And this is just one step, then the extra motion of other steps that we can be doing together to ensure that we continue and always look to improve how we are as a multicultural society and being inclusive and respectful of each other. So thank you to everybody's input.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'd also like to congratulate Councillor Lightbody, both for collaborating and also just for bringing this up. So going to the big Canberra conference, seeing a really good idea and bringing it back, and you know, being one of the first councils in Melbourne to adopt it. I think Councillor Lightbody's been a breath of fresh air at Manningham, bringing progressive views. You know, the rainbow flag, the Pride March, now this. I think it's really healthy. I think it sends a good message to the organisation. At first, when I saw it, I thought sort of, why Manningham, why now? And then I recently saw 60 Minutes, where we had a right-wing fascists meeting at the Manningham Club, giving us bad national publicity. It was shocking. And you know, they're not from Manningham, these people, but you know, you can't be vigilant enough. And I also love the idea of using our street signs. You know, it's like the state government using their number plates. If you've got control of a particular asset, use it. So I've never seen a campaign around our street signs before, but I agree with Councillor Lightbody. They look fantastic. So we produce thousands of street signs. So, you know, Anderson Street, Smith Street, and then having these signs, racism not welcome, I think are going to be in the red. It's going to be really striking to look at. And I also like the fact that this sends a message that we're not afraid to be a campaigning council, to take positions on issues. And I just like the flag that, for instance, I know that the City of Whittlesea did a great campaign a few years ago, a billboard campaign against gambling. They were quite happy because they have control over a lot of property. You can put billboards up on your land. You can use your street signs. So these are assets that we have. This is messaging that we can send. And we shouldn't just be sleepy and inert, and we should be open to progressive ideas and innovative new ways of communicating on issues. I love the fact that Manningham's got the biggest Persian community in Victoria. And also I think it's the second biggest Chinese community, and traditionally a really big Greek and Italian community. So we are very diverse. We're very harmonious, but this is an interesting message. I first wasn't quite so sure about it, but when I saw it and I've thought about it, I'm actually really happy that it's been put up, and I thank Councillor Lightbody for challenging us with these new progressive thoughts, and I'm encouraging him to keep doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. Councillor Clark, thank you.
I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't make a comment. Thank you, Councillor Lightbody, for your initiative. I have to say I was much like Councillor Mayne, a little bit at first hesitant with regards to this sort of campaign, when I feel in the community that we are a very harmonious community. We are so connected and so wonderful, and you feel that and you sense that, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in our community. So these signs I've looked at as a positive, because there are so many people that will stand behind those signs and will agree with them, and that we can keep standing out the minority of those that have a view that we don't believe should exist anymore. And when we have the signage of Be Kind, and we've had that signage around Manningham now for over a year because of COVID, and it's I loved it, walking the pavements and seeing Be Kind and support local. It made me think how wonderful that was, and we are hopefully at the end of the COVID curse, where we are feeling that sense of frustration and angst and just every opportunity for people to vent frustrations in many ways. And that would mean that, when you look at how diverse we are as a community, there will be people that will feel it as a sense of, racism. So I think it's a wonderful initiative now, especially. I think it's wonderful that we as a council are so supportive of it. We've pretty much every one of us have spoken positively about it. And I think that says a lot to who we are and what we're about, and standing by the values that we are subscribed to when we were sworn in as councillors. And it's just another initiative to show that and stand behind. And as was said with regards to the connecting, strengthening communities that we were part of, it was a wonderful session, and you felt this sense of beginning of multiple communities coming together, talking, sharing, and wanting to grow together, and wanting to overcome any obstacle that they as a community are facing, and each of them can identify with some sort of racism, and more that we stand on streets with signs so positive. I think it's great, because in this day and age, when we can't do anything else other than walk the pavements with our children, children can see this signage, and there can be great conversations, positive conversations about what that means and what that's about, and what we as a culture here in Manningham stand for. So I think great, thank you. So it's a great initiative, and it's wonderful that we collectively stand in agreement and are about to vote on that.
Thank you, Councillor Kleinert. I'd also like to thank Councillor Lightbody. Great work, and fully support it. As a few other councillors have mentioned, that strengthening through connections was a bit of an eye-opener, one of those workshops for me. A lady shared how she had experienced racism at the shops, and I guess I'm a bit naive. I just sort of thought, I've never experienced it, obviously. I'm long-term. My generations have lived here, so I really appreciate you taking the initiative, Councillor Lightbody, and I fully support it. And with that, I will, given everyone has spoken now, I think, yes, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Congratulations, and unanimous again. So we move to item 15, which is the urgent business item, which there are no items of urgent business. And item 16, councillors' question time. Do councillors wish to raise any questions at this point? I'm looking around. I can't see anyone waving. No. Councillor Chen.
Just a final minute of this meeting. And when I talk about the transport action plan, I touched on the Suburban Railroad bills that recently passed. So I really would like our officers to have a report and look into that details and report back to council. Is there anything that we can do and to facilitate in terms of advocacy or any campaigns or whatever neighboring our politicians? Yeah, and yeah, we just really actually need that because it will have such a big impact to our planning control and our planning scheme and our Manningham Doncaster Hill precinct as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask the CEO to respond. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Chen. Yeah, obviously we're very aware of that and also been in contact with our other neighbouring councillors who are impacted by this legislation as well. So what we've done to date is obviously collected our initial views on that legislation and written to the minister through the mayor and also local members as well, raising our preliminary concerns in relation to the Suburban Rail Loop Act and predominantly in relation to the planning controls that may well go along with it and council and locals communities' ability to influence what might occur, particularly around the station boxes. So we've raised a number of concerns already, and we're also seeking additional advice, specialist advice on the impact of the bill and what that might mean for us. And we'll certainly keep council and community updated on what that might be in terms of overall impact.
Thank you for the question and thank you for the response, Andrew. Is there any other question, councillors? No. Councillors, we move on to item 17, which is confidential reports. I'm sure you've all been waiting for this. There are no confidential reports. There being no further items on the agenda, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us to observe tonight's proceedings, and I hereby declare the meeting closed.